Hello and welcome to another episode of the Embodied Union podcast. I'm Lindsay.
I am Charlie.
And today we're going to be talking all things secure attachment.
Or just attachment in general. I think the number one thing that gets a woman into my world, my vortex through my door, is like attachment-based struggles, relationship-based struggles. So it's a pain point.
It really is. And for men, I know it's something that they might not want to navigate, but if they learn this, it is a superpower for a relationship. Like as far as being present, holding space, and being able to own which part is yours, which part is theirs. This is like 101.
Well, I think the thing to acknowledge is that we all have relationship stuff. You know, like you didn't have to have been the victim of severe neglect, severe abuse, to not have had something, that attachment bond, not fully form into its like most secure potential. So if you resonate with having triggers in relationship, which most of us do, then there's something here for you. There's some gold here for you in this conversation.
So how do we get stuck into it?
Well, I guess to give it really great context, we could really paint the picture of what attachment struggles look like. And I can speak for myself.
Yeah.
I think I can really paint a good picture because I felt like I was the poster child for the anxiously attached woman. You know, so what that looked like is I felt really anxious in relationship. I felt very preoccupied with partner. What are they doing? What are they feeling? What are they thinking? And less so checking in with myself just to see how I am. It was really like, okay, if they're not okay, then I'm not okay. And this is really a hallmark of anxious attachment. It's like, if my partner is wobbling, then I'm wobbling as well. So it looked like that. I had lots of just like insecurity, jealousy, worry, fear that I'm going to be left, I'm going to be abandoned. And it really had this foundational root in like a self-worth deficit, you know, not really feeling like what maybe I'm bringing is good enough. So that played out for me in all of my adult relationships, and like inside of this relationship you and I are doing, I'm really getting to see the fruits of having done some healing work on it. So the anxious attachment was always the one that really, I was like, that's me, really resonated. What about for you? I think anxious was...
Yeah, I definitely like lean more towards the anxious side, and I felt in growing up in life, I just felt like I was secure because I was so sure of my relationships and that sort of thing. But it's when it wobbled, when a relationship wobbles, that's when it really showed up for me about my preoccupation with the other and trying to have bid for connections is how I would say it in a light way. In a more dark way, it's like trying to control, trying to manipulate, trying to do all those things which seem negative, but it's out of a bid for wanting connection and wanting to keep the relationship, so to speak. So anxious can look, you know, sometimes in my case, it can look not as like anxious and as fearful as people think, but it's like more like out of control. I can get quite dysregulated, you know, and that dysregulation can show up looking a bunch of different ways that might not actually look anxious at all. You know, for particularly, I believe for men, when we get anxious, we can be afraid or scared, and that shows up as like very negative. You know?
Well, the men that I have worked with who resonate with an anxious attachment, as you said, often how it presents is they kind of knuckle down on needing to control. They can become quite controlling in relationship because they have this deep fear that's perpetuating it. Whereas my experience as a woman and feeling anxious, it's not that I would try to control, but it's just that I would go into this like dysregulated state and even get quite hysterical, you know, like I couldn't not text, how are you, what's happening, what are we doing? Or if it's like my partner wants to take space, it's like, I can't do space. It's like, I'm not going to do well while you're over there doing that. Like I'm here still stuck in it.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that it can present differently for men and women, but the fear is the same.
Yeah, and I think it's the same for the avoidant. Like, you know, if we're thinking about the other side of the spectrum with the avoidant, is a lot of people think, oh, they're just not into it. It's like, no, they're actually just the same. They still have anxiety, they still have fear, but their fear that there's something wrong with them, or they're going to get love and then they're going to stuff it up, or it's not going to work out, or they're going to fumble the bag, so to speak, or whatever it is. So they keep people at an arm's distance to be protective.
That's the thing. It's, although they present differently, it is the two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
Both desire intimacy and connection, and both are managing what intimacy and connection brings up for them in very different ways. So if someone is anxious and that's activated, the desire is to run towards the thing that they feel like is slipping away. And then for the avoidant, when they're activated and it's too much, or they feel like their independence, they're being smothered, or it's like they're fucking it up, it's like their strategy is to withdraw. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But the thing is, both are trying to create safety.
Yeah.
Both are going about in the way that they know how to create internal safety. And the strategy, which may have been supportive in childhood, is no longer supportive as an adult who wants to, I'm going to assume most of us want to have a healthy, solid, secure connection.
Yeah, and be in relationship. And I think there was that study recently where it said, like, you only have to have one of your primary caregivers give you maybe 30 or 40% attunement.
Let's unpack that a little bit, because attachment is such a buzzword. It's trending. Pop psychology's almost bastardized it. And on one hand, it's quite cool that it is trending, because what it tells me is people are interested. People want to have epic relationships. On the other side, though, people are very much into self-diagnosing, pathologizing, and putting themselves in a box. So it's like, my name's Charlie and I'm an anxiously attached woman, and that's why I show up the way that I do.
Or it's almost like weaponizing, like if this man can't hold himself or is avoidant, then somehow he's bad and he's mean and he's this and he's that. So it's a weapon that gets used against the other as well, when we other the person.
Even like with my background in psychology, putting ourselves, like, labels can be helpful to a point, but we don't want to put ourselves in a box and start using these labels to kind of excuse poor behavior either. But I think the study you're referring to give it some context, because there is so much self-labeling going on, everyone thinks they have this like attachment wounding, but the truth is the percentage is that, I don't know what the actual number is, but most people actually are secure with a tendency to lean either way when activated.
It's a spectrum.
And because the thing is, as a child, there are certain conditions that need to be present more often than not to like really develop this secure attachment. But this study you're talking about shows that you only needed to have your attachment needs met 30 to 45% of the time by one primary caregiver. And then, because this is the thing, you can listen to this and then parents can go into guilt and shame around, oh, that one time I was on my phone and distracted and I fucked up my kid, they've got this anxious attachment. Actually not. It's quite low. So it's like doing the best that you can is good enough for most people.
Yeah, well, like in the same thing in the study, it was up to 70 times a minute you need attunement. So it's like...
As an infant.
Yeah, as an infant. So it's like really like, it's quite... it's quite flexible in that. And then as you get older and you develop it for yourself, it's like what this really boils down to for me is like coming back to this space of almost like self-parenting and like self-worth, being in your own boat and really like drawing upon like yourself as something and not externalizing it. But we are in relationship, and I think that's why people can kind of probably feel unstuck, is like, I feel really good when I'm on my own, but when I jump into a relationship, I can kind of, all this stuff comes up.
Which is amazing, really, because you actually, like, you can do so much great self-development single and learn some really cool theories and even like work on your nervous system and body and learn strategy. But essentially you need someone to push up against to see your stuff. You actually need that other. So yes, you can mature some behaviors while single, but the deepest healing that you'll ever do, especially in regards to attachment wounding, which is relationship based, will be inside the relationship where both of you have decided we're going to use this for growth. Relationship tension is perfectly normal. We know it's coming, and we're actually going to use it to move into the deepest version of like authentic love. And like where most relationships fall down is they come through the honeymoon enchantment phase, new and exciting. Attachment wounding is offline at this point. And then, as it always will, it'll bubble up to the surface And this is where couples can enter into the conflict phase. This is where many couples will either then go into looping arguments, cycles of the fighting and fucking, break down and eventually break up. Or you know that conflict phase is coming and you make that commitment to yourself to have the awareness and with your partner to learn relational skills, and you use it. You use it for healing.
And it's having that willingness and that knowing, like you say, is like, what's your plan for it? Having the plan, having some insight, and not running. I think that's the thing, because like you say, if it's both sides of the same coin, it's the anxious wanting to run forward, the avoidant wanting to run back or run away or create space. It's like, how can both of them stay together? How can both of us stay still to let the healing happen, to let the co-regulation happen, to let the other know that it's like, we're going to do this differently. And we can. Like we're setting this up powerfully so we can.
Yeah, I think the internal work, the relationship dynamic, this is super important. It's important that as individuals, we're taking responsibility for creating safety inside of ourselves, because yes, I 100% believe that our relationship should have the conditions of safety. I 100% believe that my partner should collaborate on me by providing safe space, but ultimately safety is an inside job. And if I don't have this level of awareness and I have these attachment wounds, I'm going to consistently project them onto you, make you responsible for them, try to make you parent me and become my caretaker, which is it's a disservice to me because I stay stuck, but it's also a disservice to the relationship. Like that's not an adult relationship where healthy intimacy and polarity and play gets to play out, because we're stuck trying to just make each other parent our unreconciled hurt and scared.
Yeah.
So that's why with my work and with yours and with the work we do with couples, we start with the foundation of like safety, nervous system healing, building resilience in the nervous system, having strategies to come out of fight and flight. When you have that urge to run away, run towards, like it really starts with you, the individual.
Yeah, staying in your own boat, not trying to jump out of your boat into theirs, not trying to, like run the old patterns or habits. It's pattern interrupt, circuit breaking, and learning the skills, like getting super skilled in this, because otherwise it becomes that age-old thing of like just fighting, it's projecting, it's you made me feel like this, you did this, and it's victim versus victim, and it falls down very fast. It's like a house of cards.
Which is why, the relationship skills are important. So internal work important, relationship skills, like co-regulation is a gift of relationship. Yes, you don't want to rely on it to the expense of learning how to self-regulate, but I also know that some of my deepest healing is when I am feeling anxious and I do look after it myself, and maybe I can't quite get it there, and then I share it with you, but I don't do it in a way that makes you wrong. You made me anxious, you made me jealous, you made me insecure. I'm not going to tolerate your behavior. You need to be different, It's like I actually will bring it to you in a way like self-revealing. I am feeling fucking terrified. Yeah. I know it's erratic. I know there's a part of my part of me that gets you're not going anywhere, but there's another part that's here right now who is shaking and terrified and feels really young, and like I have to bring that to you, and then you're able to hold that with me because you're not fully responsible for it. So it feels better for you to hold it with me. And then I get the gift of co-regulation. I get the gift of my nervous system. Relationship is safe. I'm gathering the evidence now that I am welcome here, my stuff is welcome here, and that I can create healing with this person. And that is, I believe, a secure relationship. I'm saying it now, I'm like, of course, but a secure relationship is what builds a secure attachment. And if you didn't have that as a child, you get to have it with an adult, as an adult. But it does mean that you have to have discernment when it comes to picking a partner who is willing to create secure relationship with you.
And I think that's the part that can be quite a challenge, is that if we're really wanting a partner and we are anxious, we'll tend to try and latch onto someone that's unavailable or not willing. Or I had it recently where a woman said that her partner was like stonewalling her and whatnot. I'm like, Well, if you think about, like, if say he was avoidant, it's just fear. It's not that he's trying to push you away. He's wanting to try and create safety for himself in this, and that he doesn't know how. So his protection mechanism of safety is, I need to protect myself from this person because I don't know how to do this. I'm going to stuff it up. Maybe I'm not good enough, whatever it is. And this can perpetuate. And I think the big thing here is learning in relationship is that it's our responsibility, it's our job to be able to do this. Like, how can we create a secure attachment in a relationship for ourselves? Because I've also seen that, say, when we're in a relationship and someone starts to become more secure or starts to work on themselves, it can actually have the other person feel like they're being abandoned, or that person's changing and I'm not sure if I'm going with them or not. And that's the separation. So, this happens in the dynamic of relationship quite a bit, that one person is wanting to move along and to grow and to develop, and the other person's stuff starts to come up, because they don't know if they're going to be good enough to go with them, or if they're feeling like they possibly can, or just by actual fact, one person progressing along and becoming more secure just brings the other person's stuff up automatically, because it creates a space, a distance, whatever it is. That's confronting, So it's like, how can we do this together? Or realize that sometimes the person that you're with that is unwilling to do this work, that might be a deal breaker. That might actually be the thing that it's like, maybe this is not the relationship because this person is literally unwilling, And I wonder that sometimes for couples, it's like, is there willingness? And I think you said it before, which is so important, is there has to be willingness from both sides, and a genuine one, not just lip service either. It's like, I'm sure, many of our listeners are female, so it's like, I'm sure they're wanting a man that they can be in relationship with that's going to be their word, be congruent, say, yes, I'm into this, yes, I want this, and then do the follow-up, which is the sexiest part, is like, he's actually doing what he said he was going to do. And is there willingness for that?
What I do see is what you've just said, really, like, even if there's one who's really willing, like, I'm doing the work. I don't care if you're coming with me. I'm gonna do this for me. Then it's one of two things happens, right? Like, either your partner, the seed is planted and your partner's like, I'm coming with you, or you doing your work on yourself builds enough certainty and strength for you to have to make that decision to maybe this is actually no longer in alignment and we have to walk away. But doing the work on yourself will give you the courage and the strength to be able to make that decision. So it's like, even if your partner's not willing to come with you, do the work on you.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those two things is going to happen, and it's better than staying stuck. Like, if what you're doing is not working, it's either let's move and come with me, or I'm going to build some strength so I can move, and that's what I have to do.
And I think that for so many people is also a part in this, where, again, saying that sometimes when we're on our own, we're quite solid and comfortable and feeling quite secure because it's not bringing it up.
Yes.
But then it's also having the discernment when we're in relationship is like, are we going together enough, or where we want it to go, and making sure that we're not staying, and tricking ourselves into believing that this is growth when it's actually just perpetuating pain.
This is a really important point. I've had women come to me in and I hate the word toxic, but I'm going to use it, in toxic relationships, and say to me, but you say relationship is for growth. Like, relationship is for growth. Maybe this is our growth. No, that is actually not what I'm saying. Relationship is for growth, but in a relationship that is healthy, yes, pain points and growth and tension happen, but the relationship actually isn't toxic, because two people are still bringing their willingness to do their work and learn something different and move forward. When you're just stuck in cycles, or your partner will not communicate with you, is giving you zero evidence that they're like open to leaning in and showing up, that is not a relationship. That it feels heavy, but it's not growth, it's just heaviness. Like, you don't heal trauma with more trauma. You heal trauma with tension, but the tension is moving, like the conflict's moving into clarity.
Yes.
And that can happen quite quickly. You're not actually staying stuck in the heaviness and, oh, well, this is just for my growth. Absolutely not. A growth-oriented relationship actually feels really good.
Yeah.
It's just the tense times, we deal with them more productively. They still come up, but we're moving through them faster and we're feeling closer and more intimate. So it's like if you're in this relationship and it's like, oh, we're looping and it's hard and it feels toxic, but this is for us, I'm going to challenge you on that.
Yeah, and what I sort of deem as that is like, because I work with men, it's like manipulation, control, lying, violence.
Are these what you're saying is where you draw the line?
Yeah, it's things like, you know, that sort of thing, cheating, lying. It's essentially broken agreements, and it's using power in a way like either physical power, emotional power, because, you know, men can use their physical and it's more obvious that we can be more physically like powerful, whereas women are more emotionally powerful and they can manipulate that way. So it's like, you know, sometimes we've talked about this with like the dark feminine, dark masculine work as well, but I honestly feel like it's knowing what your boundaries are for yourself, you know. And sometimes I think for people in relationship, we can kind of, I don't like to say it, but we can almost like gaslight ourselves into not knowing if what's happening is the truth or not. Like, oh, I'm not really sure, as, you know, he hit me, but it was out of context, or, you know, we were drinking or something happened, and it kind of makes it okay. It's like, that's not okay.
This is a really important point. When someone has an insecure attachment wounding, standards get thrown in the bin. Discernment is out the window, standards are in the bin, and it's like we keep settling and settling and settling and staying and staying and staying. And that's like that. If that's you, you need support, because your internal system that tells you like danger, 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 it's off, because your desire to connect is stronger than that part of you that's like, I'm just going to take myself over here. Like the desire to connect, and like the desire to connect, it's a really valid human need. But when you have insecure attachment wounding, you'll connect to just about anything.
Oh God, yeah.
So it's like we need to support people, and we are, in providing that safety inside of themselves so they can turn away from the dysfunctional relationship and now start having discernment around creating connection in relationship that actually supports them thriving in life.
Yeah, and I think usually the way that I sort of see it in relationship is that fight, flight, freeze or please. It's like there's an element of being frozen in relationship or fawning in relationship, where it's like, oh, I want to make it work so much, I'll put up with X, Y, and Z. And there's even to that point of like, why am I doing this? Like, I really like the person, but I'm also like, it almost feels like I'm crossing my own boundary. But like in my case, I have a part of me that really wants to get it right. So that part of me that wants to get it right will happily stay well beyond its expiry date, because there's something that I'm trying to reconcile within myself, and it's almost irrelevant to the other person. So it's like, like you're saying, how can we create safety in our own system so we can actually observe ourselves in a way that feels secure and solid and good?
The thing to really acknowledge here is you can't think your way out of your attachment wounding. So the thing is, someone who has quite a lot of, I work with women that have awareness. So it's like, I get what I'm doing. Like I get what happened in childhood, and I can really understand that this person is not it.
And I
really get it.
Yeah.
But I'm still doing it. Like I'm still doing the behavior. I'm still recreating the problem and the pattern and leaning in. I'm not leaving, or I'm chasing, or like I'm chasing potential, or like I'm like, well, for whatever reason, like we know. And awareness isn't enough. So like listening to this podcast or listening to books or anything that speaks into this, it can give you really powerful insight and awareness pieces. That is not enough to create the change. The thing that you need to be doing is actually working with the reactivity inside the nervous system.
Yes.
So I think what could be helpful is to actually give, and this is for people, whether you feel avoidant or anxious or disorganized or whatever you feel in relationship when you're triggered, you want to have strategies and tools to ground yourself, to create that internal safety. So like a big part of the work is self-regulation work, nervous system healing.
Yep, and that's my profession, is, guiding men gently into their bodies, and it's not forcing it in there, not slamming guys into ice baths or doing huge breathwork processes or anything like that. To me, it's about how do we gently bring ourselves back home, so there's an element of safety, so I don't run towards and I don't run away. And inside of, when we feel safe, we have more options. Our brain is more open. We can think, we can be creative, we can be less defensive and have less of our stuff come up. If we're triggered or stressed, it's just black or white, It can create so much tension in the body. So for me, it's all the ways that I help men unravel, and it's very particular for each man in my case.
But so specifically working somatically with people to create safety, I think as well, just to give some strategies for people to do on their own, I agree with you that those big holotropic, big breathwork sessions, which they can feel really cathartic. I think that they kind of blast your nervous system open, and what I would suggest instead is more like a gentle breathwork practice, like a pranayama or a yogic breathwork, like a box breathing. You're breathing in for 4, holding 4, exhaling 4, holding 4, and really working with extended exhales and breathing into your belly. If you put a 3-minute timer on your phone and you just have your hands on your belly and you focus really on breathing deeply into this space, you're engaging your parasympathetic nervous system. So it's having practices like this, doing a yin yoga practice or a yoga practice that's restorative, that focuses on twisting and folding and belly breathing. I really advocate that women or humans have a daily practice.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you're in it. If you feel quite dysregulated in relationship, it's you make the commitment to daily nervous system practice, and 20 minutes. But 20 minutes of potency, you know, if you're just going through the physical movements of I'm walking but I'm thinking, or I'm doing yoga but I'm in my head thinking about my relationship struggles, it's presence is really part of the medicine here. But just committing to daily nervous system regulation, and then having stuff in the heat of the moment when you start to feel that activation in your system. So even in the heat of the moment, you could do that box breathing and no one would even know that you're doing it. You could extend your exhales. You could breathe in for 1, breathe out for 1, 2, and you're directing it to the belly. No one knows you're doing anything, but you're starting to engage the parasympathetic nervous system. So you need strategies like this in your toolkit.
Definitely. And for the guys, typically it's we really can loop in our heads and get quite heady
Same
with
for
this.
women.
So my go-to to start with is helping men, because if you can't think your way out of into a secure attachment, then it's how can I put all these racing thoughts down onto paper, which seems more logical. So then once it's there, I can look at it and actually get more of a feel for it. So I'm helping men guide themselves more into their feeling body. They can see their thoughts, but then go into their body for more felt sense of just I'm starting to become more sensitive and more aware of actually how I feel, so I can pick up on it. Because I think a lot of the time men just go from 0 to 100. It's because there's a lack of awareness in the body. The body moves a little bit slower, a little bit more quietly than the mind. And so if I'm able to offer men a way or a structure for them to be able to sort of watch the clouds roll in before the rain comes, they're more aware about what's happening before it happens. And then they can pick up on it a bit quicker, be more grounded and be more present. And like you say, you could say it's an embodiment work or it's somatic work or whatever it is, but really it's about bringing yourself into grounded and presence. And I know that's such a big part for men, is becoming more present, because the presence is masculine, the presence can hold, the presence is safety as well. And I think for men, this is just huge. It's big work.
It's honestly, it's men and women. Like this is humans. Humans need presence. They need mindfulness. They need to slow down so they can actually start to challenge their triggered thoughts. Like our reactivity is automatic. So we need to be able to slow down so that we can catch it. Because the problem for most people is they're not able to catch it. It happens and then it's gone and then they're gone. So having a practice like you're saying to slow down, to be more mindful, to check in. I think the breathing is helpful. I think as well, like say you have anxiety coursing through your system, like putting on some music and having a practice of shaking, like shaking to discharge the energy, because it's all energy. So how can you move the energy through you? Like we suffer when we resist what we're feeling, but if we can actually walk into the center of our own storm and claim it through movement or sounding or breathing, then we actually get to take some of our power back. So this is why I really love giving people tangible tools so that they don't need us. Like I love the work that we do, but my dream when anyone comes to see me is that eventually I've given you enough that you can actually now go and do this yourself. You're not reliant on me. I don't want to take someone with an anxious, codependent relationship and have them transfer that onto me.
No.
So I love giving people tools.
Resourced, having clients be resourced and have discernment for themselves so they can either be in the relationship that they are in, leave the relationship that they have, and pick people that are a match for what they actually truly want. I think is really important.
I think that's worth just noting on, because people, your partner, whoever you choose, not someone you date, one date, not someone that you dated for a month and then they left, like that's not what I'm talking about. But the person that you choose to emotionally commit to, longer term, that person is your match. It's like, it's a reflection of where you are at. So if you're not happy with the situation, it's less about your partner and it's more about yourself, but it's about stepping into becoming the embodiment of what you say you want. So if you want a healthy relationship, you have to commit to repair and communication and holding space and self-revealing and doing your internal work. Like you actually have to become that to become a match for that.
Yeah, otherwise...
There's not some dream partner that's going to come in and make it all better. Like you have been my dream partner who has come in and made my life so much easier, but you wouldn't even have seen me. I wouldn't have even seen you had I not been ready for that. We would not have been a match. It wouldn't have clicked together, or we would have come together and then we would have gone separate ways.
Yeah.
So it's, again, internal work, self-responsibility.
That feels really good. Did we miss anything? Is there something more?
I don't think so. It's more just avoid the self-pathologizing. No attachment piece is like one piece of a really big puzzle. It's very multi-layered. When there's attachment wounding, there's usually self-worth deficits. So working on worthiness, working on confidence, that kind of stuff, self-love, it's really important. Working on your nervous system and learning relationship skills so you can support each other's healing as well as your own. I feel like that is the crux of attachment work.
Yeah, that self-appreciation, like really validating yourself and learning to do that for yourself so you're not externalizing it or having it feel like someone's encroaching for the more avoidant. And I guess that ties into my masterclass for Monday then, is like, really supporting men in getting really grounded in who they are and how they want to show up. And the masterclass is the lighthouse for those people that are interested, and it gives men the opportunity of how to be the beacon, how to build their own lighthouse for themselves in their life and build like a solid structure. And I think it's super important. It's like, how can you be the lighthouse in your life for others and for yourself? And really it's about showing up. Completely showing up, being open, vulnerable, raw, real, and willing, yeah, and being seen. Like I think that for so many of us there's such a desire for that, but there's also so much fear around being seen in relationship or in our life or in our work. And this is, like you say, a human thing, but it's something that I really want to deliver for men to be able to bring to their relationship, because I know for so many women there's just such a desire to be in relationship, and for men to just be in beautiful relationships and like have great connection as well. It's like there's so much desire to have great intimacy in relationship, but it doesn't happen over the top of all these other things, and just because there's maybe a push-pull dynamic of the anxious and the avoidant, it's not necessarily healthy. Like, how can we create healthy relationships that flourish and thrive, you know? I'm here for that.
Women, send your men to the masterclass. I
Yeah.
can tell you now, it's a gift to be in relationship with a man who can hold containment for the emotions that move through us, that can hold their own center. It's a gift, and I'm so grateful that we get to do that together.
I love you, Critter.
I love you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your presence. As always, you can reach out, Instagram, Embodied Union.
Lindsay B, Instagram.
And I am Charlie S. Hannah, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye for now.